The student wants to make and support generalization about Nisology's definition of an island. Okay. Just like the last question, we have to make a generalization followed by the support. So let's read. Nisologists are scientists who study islands. Some nisologists define an island as any piece of land surrounded by water. So we have a first definition here. Okay, so I'll use a different thing. So some define as any piece of land surrounded by water, and using that definition, they determine that there are over 200k islands. Other nisologists define an island as being 1 kilometer square. Okay, so they have a size restriction or qualification that 1 kilometer squared, a certain distance from the mainland, and having at least 50 permanent residents. So they're more strict on what qualifies an island. So using the definition, they determine that Sweden has 24 islands. Okay, so you can see a drastic change based on the different definitions. So please remember that this is about nisologists' definition of islands. Okay, we have two drastic different definitions that can compare big difference of islands. Now when we say big difference, okay, this is why you need to know SAT vocab. Disparity is the answer to that. Okay, huge difference. So when we make this generalization, we need to cover both view here and summarize it, because that's what generalize is. Make a short summary and then support that. So keeping that in mind, let's look at A here. The definition of an island as any piece land surrounded by water is supported by some nisologists, scientists who study islands. So the problem with this is that they only mention the one group, like group A, but it doesn't talk about the second one, that some define an island as being 1 kilometer square and at least minimum of 50 permanent residents. So because it's not covering B, we cannot say the generalization about nisology's definition of an island. Okay. So choice B, multiple counts of Sweden's islands have been based on different definition of an island. Okay. So it's true that there are multiple counts, as we saw in line 3 and line 6, 221k versus 24 islands. It's definitely a different count that we see here empirically. However, it did not make and support generalization about the definitions. Okay? It only stated the result, nothing about the nisology's definition of an island. So B is not correct. C, based on a recent count, Sweden has a relatively small number of islands with at least 50 permanent residents. Okay, so it was using some support on one camp, the camp B here. Any island described as 1 kilometer squared and at least 50 permanent residents. But it's just like in choice A, it's missing the other camp, the camp A here. So not only that, it did not make any generalization. Okay, it only described the number of islands. So C is not correct. Now choice D, nisologists' different definitions can result in huge disparities. Now it is huge, right? 221,000 versus 24. That's the 10 to the power of what, like 4 magnitude. So in counting islands as the example Sweden shows. So we use in this student note the Sweden as an example. So there is a support, and here is the generalization. Okay, depending on which definition you use, there's a huge difference in count of islands, as the example of Sweden shows. The correct answer should be D.